Cliches retire, we set them free, shaking the ground with epiphany. Fresh thinking loud, it's our decree. Unconventional wisdom dancing on the beat.
Hey there, and welcome to Unconventional Wisdom about conventional wisdom. I am your host, Kim Miller-Hershon, with my very good friend and total badass attorney, Katie Phetteplace. So, Katie, why don't you take a minute and just introduce yourself to our incredible listeners?
All right. I am Katie Phetteplace. I am a commercial real estate transactional attorney with a small law firm called Star Finley, where we do exclusively commercial real estate transactions. So my areas of expertise are in buying and selling commercial real estate and advising clients on leasing, lending, pretty much anything to do with commercial real estate. I am a mom and a dog mom and a lot of fun to drink wine with, and Kim's friend, and all of the great things.
And an equestrian.
I am also trying to be equestrian. No, I'm going to manifest it. I am an equestrian.
There you go. Love it.
I'm a cowgirl.
Awesome. All right. So our listeners are dying to know, what is the worst job you have ever had?
That is a very easy question. Kim, do you recall back in the day when people would call you on the phone, on the landline, and ask questions, customer service questions?
Oh, yeah.
Calls? Yes. So I did cold calling for clients, but we were in the marketing space. So I would have to call people and convince them to stay on the phone, to talk to me, to complete a survey on whatever the topic was. And as you can imagine, the vast majority of people that I called immediately hung up on me. And that was one of the better responses. And we were in a call center in this like booth. It was terrible. And then if they didn't hang up on me right away, the second biggest category of people totally cursed me out, which I always felt was ridiculous because it's not like I was doing it for my own pleasure. But you did have to do, sometimes people would talk to you, primarily older people who were lonely. One survey in particular that I had to find people to talk to was a half-hour long survey on their enjoyment of non-alcoholic beer. So if you want to talk
Okay.
about looking for a needle in a haystack, the good news was there was a significant bonus attached to it if you could get anybody to complete it,
Oh, that's so funny.
which I think I did once.
Okay. Okay. I'm impressed. Actually, you know what that reminds me of? I haven't thought about this in years. So, talk about like dialing for dollars. So, for a very short time, actually, I was living in Houston and I was with a recruiting firm.
Mhm.
Okay. But it was not retained search, right? It was literally dialing for dollars, right? Like you're trying to find businesses, like you're trying to find people, you're trying to do everything, right? And this is, oh my God, am I dating myself? Taking out the phone book and literally just like going through numbers. And I call this one number, I'm trying to get a business in a particular category. And I called somebody's hospital room and I got a patient on the, oh my Lord.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was maybe not the people looking for your services.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
So I
So
digress.
that was without question my worst job.
Yeah. Yes.
Mhm.
Oh my Lord. Yes. Thank goodness that A, you don't have to do that anymore. And B, we can delete our emails much quicker.
And I also think that now I have a visceral response whenever people talk about cold calling and networking. I'm just like, nope, nope.
Yeah.
Hell no, no, no.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Exactly. All right, let me ask you this to start the conversation. Like when you were either a young lawyer or just starting out in your career, and I think we all have this, right? We have this idea about what we're going to have to do to be successful. What did you think then? And what do you actually think now? You just realize that is just not the right advice for you.
Yeah, this will come as a shock to you, but I have a big personality. And I think that a lot of emphasis in particular was put on me, and not even necessarily from outside, but from outside as well as from internally, about presenting professionally and whatever this idea of professionalism looked like, what it felt like. And I remember as a young lawyer going to networking events or whatever with my business partners, and both of whom had two very different styles in terms of how they networked with people and interacted with people, and really trying to like almost pick apart like what did it mean to be professional, like how to present as professionally in those various types of environments. And I really came to realize that was just not for me.
Say more about that.
Yeah, especially with lawyers. There's this like, image of what a lawyer looks like, what a lawyer acts like. There's a certain amount of stuffiness that people expect, or gravitas, or whatever it is. Or maybe it's like a ickiness because they're ambulance chasers. But people have an idea of what a professional lawyer looks like and sounds like. And I have my partner Eric, who is the epitome of the like lawyer, like he's every man's friend and hey, how's it going? And he doesn't do that, but it's like that. But it's so easy to him and people love him and he's got a professional air to him. And I think I spent a lot of time trying to emulate that. And I wouldn't say it was unsuccessful. I wouldn't say it was unsuccessful because Eric is a very likable person and a very open person. And so there was certainly big pieces that I was able to learn from and to take on. And Eric's not me.
Right.
And we just come to the table with different things. So I think it was really learning how I could bring my authenticity into a professional environment. And once I figured out how to do that, I think I got much more success and much more response.
Oh, and that is such an interesting juxtaposition, right? You think you have to show up a certain way, and part of it is authentically who
It's
you
not,
are, but
yeah,
but part of it really isn't who, right? You're not bringing your whole self to the table.
no, and
And then you think though that's what success looks like, and then lo and behold, as you mature, you figure out, wait, I can actually like bring my whole self to the table,
100% of
and
it.
then
Mhm.
your business skyrockets.
Yeah. And I remember being in many situations with professionally where I was literally shushed. And like that shushing, I think, is an example of what I was trying to do, which was shush myself.
Mhm.
And I can be professional and not be shushed.
There
I
you
can
go.
be professional and be all of who I am.
And I would go so far as to say, anybody who that doesn't resonate with,
That's okay.
that's
Well,
right.
I think part of it is learning to be comfortable enough to recognize that there is a shit ton of business out there. And there are plenty of people who will never want to work with me, no matter how much I shush myself. And there are plenty of people who love working with me because I don't. And a lot of it,
Ex
I think, came from experience and confidence and just maturity.
yes. I think that is really important. What it brings up for me is that I used to work in engineering firms. Like me in an engineering and I didn't dress in bright colors, and I talk about shushing yourself, right? Like, I really tried to fit in a mold. Now, I
Yeah,
was doing biz dev and marketing, so I didn't have to fit into exactly the engineering mold, but man, oh man, I did not show up as my authentic self. And as I like to say, the universe did for me what I couldn't do for myself, and I got laid off. And it was painful at the time because financially, like I was there for a reason.
nobody likes to be laid off.
Yeah.
There's very few times where people are like, woohoo, I got laid off.
Exactly. And like looking back, silver lining, best thing that ever happened to me,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Yeah, but I do think it really does take experience and confidence to be able to realize that you really can show up as yourself. And if you are in a situation where you can't, then you need to look at the situation, not yourself.
Yeah. And that's the thing is because I develop a lot of very close relationships with my clients. And even aside from just my clients, I regularly have people say to me, you are not the typical lawyer. You are not what I expect from working with a lawyer. Like that is something I hear all the time. And for me, that works out great because I like to think of myself as not being typical anything. And it really gave me room to recognize that there's plenty of people out there who want to work with someone
Mhm.
that is more accessible, is more open, that cares about their business, that they can have the kind of person they want to sit down and have a drink with after work. And they're not looking for the stuffy lawyer who's going to slap them on the hand and tell them what to do. There are plenty of people who are looking for that too. That's also fine. One of my favorite quotes, and I think it's Dita Von Teese, the burlesque dancer, who said, "You could be the juiciest, ripest peach in the orchard." And not everybody likes peaches. So there are people who think I'm the greatest lawyer on the planet, and there are people for whom I will always be way too much, and that's fine.
And let me ask you this, because I think this is an interesting thing, specifically like around professional competence, is that you are really at the top of your game in terms of how you take care of your clients and how well you do the work, right? I'm going to say it as a fact, but you tell me. I think there's a perception that, oh, if you have a big personality, then you'll have to compromise on the professional competence, right? And that is not necessarily the case.
I would go one step further and say I am very good at what I do, and
Yeah,
I have a big personality, and there has never been a one or the other.
that's right. Yeah.
They are both there. Now,
Do you
that being
think,
said, there are different ways to practice law. And there are different value systems, there's different philosophies. There's lawyers out there who won't give an inch and just grind and grind. And there are clients who love that. And there are people who I have a little bit more of a business friendly style where my clients want me to protect them. They want me to do the work, but they don't want me to get in the way. And so there's a lot of different styles for that. For
right?
some people, they feel like if you aren't grinding them, you're not protecting them. And that's fine. There's plenty of those lawyers out there.
Yeah, and I remember one time you actually said to me that one of the things that you love, because I think maybe the question I'd asked you was like, why real estate law, right?
Mhm.
And I remember that it surprised me. And we know each other very well.
Yeah.
And what you said to me really surprised me, which was, I love this kind of law because we're all working towards a common goal, right?
100%.
And then that really surprised me because, again, like you said, there are some lawyers that come to approach this that you're my client and I am just going to grind the other side down. And you come at it like, listen, we're looking for wins for everybody here.
Yeah, Eric has always said this from the beginning because I've worked with Eric my entire tenure as a lawyer. I started working for him when I was still in law school, which tells you how much I like working with Eric. The fact that I've been here almost 30 years now, and he's next door right now. So it's a long-term relationship. But Eric says we practice happy law. When we come to conclusion, no one's running out of the courthouse pissed off and cursing. Everybody sends out congratulations. This is great. Everybody wants to do the deal. Don't get me wrong. There are things that come up and there are times when I have to deal with tenant defaults or whatever. That happens. It's part of it. But most of my job is you want this office space. They want you to move in. You want to buy this building at this price. They are willing to sell it for you at this price. And
Right.
so my job is to protect, but also to facilitate. And there's people I'm like, when I see their name on the other side representing the other party, I'm like, I'm so excited you're on this again because we develop such great relationships. And I have people that I've met on the other side of deals that later refer business to me. So it really does make a big difference as opposed to the litigation practice where your job is to fight with people.
Yeah.
So for me, I got very lucky.
And
Happy
actually,
niche.
really, because I think there is something for everybody, no matter what it is that you do. But you had a great mentor,
Oh,
right?
100%. Eric and Julie, I have two really great mentors, but mainly Eric because I just work with him more, but Julie was also really an incredible mentor. I'm very lucky.
Yeah. I think it's like luck and, right?
Yes,
Like you wouldn't have
yes,
stayed this long if you weren't who you are and you weren't able to develop from the foundation that you were given.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
And given the room to decide what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. Because there were times when I certainly looked at other opportunities and weighed the pros and cons. And obviously, I never went anywhere. But yeah, I was given a lot of space.
Right. So, as a successful leader, what's one thing that people assume that you've got figured out that internally you still wrestle with?
Internally, I am very methodical in 90% of my life, where I'm A plus B, like I'm a very linear thinker, very logical thinker. I'm a lawyer. You could level a deck with my linear thought. When it comes to my networking, Kim, I swear to God, one of these days I'm going to get like CRM software and have a plan and have some sort of business development, like actual plan other than show up and hang out with people. I don't know when it's going to happen. I swore it was going to happen the first quarter of this year. I'm absolutely no further along.
That's so funny.
So thank God, knock on wood, so far it's been effective,
Mhm.
but it's on my wish
Yeah,
list of things to accomplish that I have some sort of master networking business
right.
development plan, but I do not.
All right. So, that brings up an interesting point. So, I am putting on my Coach Kim hat for a moment. And what I think is an interesting question to ask yourself, this is not a coaching session, but I just think it's interesting for the listener as well, is are you trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist? In other words, is that a should? Or do you really and truly think strategically that it's going to get you more business?
I think that there are benefits to doing it, but I don't think that I need to have a master plan. If I had a more systematized, like CRM software, I think that there would be benefits to doing that. And not even just necessarily from the perspective of business development, outreach, tracking, the bigger strategy situation. And so I think it's worthwhile in doing that. Do I think I need some big developed business plan? I don't think I need that, which I
Yeah,
think is part of the problem, is I don't think this is a big problem. I think this
right,
in a perfect world, I
right.
would have it, but it's not holding me back, which is part of the reason why it just never quite gets to the top of my list.
Yeah. And I just think that's an important discussion to have, which is where is it in the priority list and what's a need to have versus a want to have. Sometimes I think about it, what's the cake, what's the icing, and what's the cherry on top?
Yeah.
And again, I know you well enough to know that you're getting a lot of referrals,
Yeah.
right? You're getting a lot
Yeah.
of business
And I'm
coming
getting a
in.
lot of good referrals, the
That's
kind of
right.
referrals that they're not bad referrals.
That's right.
But I think that I need like a cupcake worth.
Okay. All right. We
Yeah.
can talk about that. I have some ideas.
Okay. I like it.
All right. So, if you could rewrite the rule book on leadership, what's one outdated belief that you'd throw away immediately and what would you replace it with?
So I think there's a couple of things. I think that with leaders, like I lead by example. And I think a lot of people still very much have a more paternalistic view of leadership where you just pass it down through the ranks. And I was the first person in my family to go to a 4-year institution and then go on to grad school. My aunt worked for a law firm for years, and my aunt always said, be nice to your secretary, be nice to like the people behind the scenes. And then I put myself through school, so I worked all those jobs as well. And there's never been a point in time when I ask any of my employees to do something I wouldn't be willing to do. I don't lead from the top down. I lead from like, we're all getting in this together. And that to me, and having that perspective, because I've been in 1,000 law firms, I've seen the way 1,000 different lawyers do it. And there's still a lot of people out there who are like, go do this, go do that. And it's very much like a just do it. Whereas with my team, I'm still the leader, I am in charge,
Mhm.
but I am very aware of what everybody's doing. I never ask anyone to do anything I wouldn't do. I make sure that people are set up for success. I try to have a lot of grace with people. I wouldn't say I have low standards, I don't at all. But I also understand that I'm a perfectionist and people aren't going to do it 100% my way, no matter how much I bark at them to do. And so I think that being approachable and being collaborative, especially with the younger generations, is far more effective than just sitting around and being like, these millennials, they have no work ethic. I don't think that's true at all. But they want you to be invested with them for them to be
Right.
invested. So I think that's the biggest one is I think that old school style of just go do it is just not, it's
Mhm.
not effective.
I can't even believe that I'm going to say this, but I was in a pissy mood this morning, having nothing to do.
No,
I know it's
no.
shocking. And I was just irritated. And actually, it had to do with my car, right? So it had nothing to do. But then something didn't get done to the way it was supposed to get done. And I was not as kind or like I showed my frustration in a
Mhm.
way that probably was not particularly
You're
productive.
human.
I am. Although, what I would say is that, like, I dealt with my car and then I took a minute to write a note to my assistant to say, I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
apologize, right? That was not about you, and I shouldn't have barked at you, right? It goes in the same thing that you were saying, which is, oh, it's my firm. I pay you, right? Like, you may like it, you may not like it, but I can act however I want to act, right? And I think that's a very, like you said, top down. I think we think of it as paternalistic, but realistically, I think that there are women who do the same
Oh,
thing.
it is not gender based. There's
Yeah,
some of the people I know who are the most like that are women. It's not a gender based, it's just more of like a system. But as you were saying when you were talking, it reminded me there's been one time in my career where I cried at work because of a work matter. And it was because I yelled at my assistant in a way that afterwards I was so embarrassed by. And she had made a mistake and legitimately had made a big mistake. And I just and then once I sat down and I sat with it, I called her in to apologize and just burst into tears because I felt so badly.
yeah,
Like my response was just so out of line. And I never
right.
wanted to do that again. And I really think for her, experiencing that was like, okay, thank you. Like it was genuinely heartfelt.
And I think it's a slippery slope because you do have to hold people accountable. And one of the things that I see most often in my coaching practice is badass bosses who tolerate inferior work, right?
Yeah.
Who are not willing to have the hard conversations. And so often, what I am really teaching people is you can be a nice person and a good leader and talk about performance.
Well,
And
at the end of the day, this is also my business.
that's
And
right.
I've had to fire people. And I have had to sit people down before that and be like, okay, what am I missing? Can I give you better instructions? Like what,
Yeah.
there's a lot of pieces that go into it. But at the end of the day, this is my business. This is how I pay my mortgage and take care of my kid.
Absolutely. And I think we talk about leadership and where you need to grow. And actually, it's so funny because I wasn't actually meaning to be like harsh.
Mm.
This I see it all the time and this is a heartfelt belief of mine. And I said it and I looked around the room and I was like, "Oh shoot. This really landed a little harshly." But basically my stance is that any manager who gives a performance review, your once a year performance review, and there is criticism there that you've never addressed with your employee, right? That is a
100%.
management fail, right?
100%.
That nobody should ever go to a review and have surprises,
100%.
right? You should have
Mhm.
seen those, some of the looks of the people in the room. Yeah, that is funny. All right. So, what would you say, maybe 4 or 5 years? You've had a pretty significant increase in your practice, in your business.
Yes.
So, what's one unconventional habit or mindset shift that helped you grow your business?
I don't know that it's necessarily unconventional for the bigger world, but I think it's unconventional for lawyers. And that is that I really leaned into the sort of therapy part of practicing law. And aside from that, and just the personal element of it. So I just have really leaned into getting to know my clients more. I call people up just to check in on them and like from a genuine place of, hey, I haven't talked to you in a little while. What's going on? Would your kid decide what college to go to? And so I think that having that relationship and going above the point where I am their lawyer to the point where I am their friend who is also their lawyer and really having that personal relationship with my clients has really made a lot of difference. And I spend a lot of time socializing with clients. Like I joke around and say that as soon as I started drinking with people, that's when my business really took off. But I think a big part of it is I'm a wine drinker. I love wine. I love sharing wine with other people. I love drinking with other people. But being involved and really taking the time to socialize with people one on one, whether it's over wine or a beer or a coffee, and not even necessarily talking about law, but really honing in on Who do I want to work with? Who do I want to have a relationship with? And then continuing to develop through those people has been the biggest difference. Take the time to really get to know people and
Right.
to really get to know their business. And I think that personal touch really resonates.
And then let me ask you this, in terms of your own personal growth, because you were a good attorney 5 years ago, you're a good
Mhm.
attorney now. So then the question, like in terms of your own belief in yourself, like what do you think changed there?
Oh, can't believe I didn't mention this first. So there was a big transition for me during the pandemic. And a lot of people's businesses were in upheaval. And obviously, real estate was a huge part of that because there were all these places that couldn't open, retail, etc. So I was doing a ton of work with people for that first, I say the first 6 months of the pandemic. I was working like literally nonstop. And I did probably 500 lease amendments. And I was coordinating with clients and brokers and landlords and tenants and everybody trying to come up with plans for what we were going to do and how we were going to address it because there were obviously much bigger issues at play. And it really was an opportunity to be strategic and be creative and problem solving. So you'd have some tenants that were like, your business was never going anywhere, period. And this is just the death nail. No, but it happened. They exist.
Yeah.
And and this is just the death nail. And you had other clients where you were like, look, this has been an amazing tenant for 25 years. Why would you not just make something happen? But during that time, because a lot of other people was also going through divorce, there were other people in my firm who at that point took a bit of a step back and semi-retired. And during that time, I really came to realize that I needed more autonomy over my own business. And for a long time, I was in like a contract partner position where I was a partner, but the economics were a hybrid between a partner and an employee. So there was a safety net. And I think it took me a very long time to realize, and in hindsight, way longer than it should have, that safety net was holding me back because the safety net made me complacent. So I always knew I had a minimum income. I always knew I had Eric to give me work. I was in a very comfortable spot for a long time. And then the pandemic hit, and my life was completely put in upheaval. And I remember I had a thought at one point where I was like, what am I going to do? This like worst case scenario. And I thought, there are people who got rich during the Great Depression.
Mhm.
And so I said, I can look at this as the worst thing that's ever happened to the universe, which in some ways it was absolutely terrible and it was hideous to a lot of people. Or I could look at it as an opportunity. And that was the point where I really started reaching out to people and I switched to complete equity partner. So no more safety net. Now it's all on me. And I reached out to tons of people and I really tapped into relationships and I made myself just completely accessible to people to brainstorm and come up with plans and talk to brokers about how they could add value to their clients. And that was the shift. Once that was gone, I was like, oh God, now all of my success is on me.
Mm.
And since it was literally from that date to where we are now, my business has tripled.
Wow.
And that was 2020.
And I think that is a really important thing. Don't take unnecessary risks. Don't take huge risks unless you are in a position to be able to come out from it if it doesn't work out. But I think that idea of belief enough in yourself to be
Mhm.
able to play a bigger game.
But and I also think the flip side of that, which was I was so comfortable that I was clipping my own wings.
There you go. There it is, folks. So comfortable, I was clipping my own wings. Yep. That's a gem right there.
There you go.
All right. All right. As we wind down this conversation, I want to ask you one last two-part question, which is when do you feel some imposter syndrome? And
Mhm.
then what do you do about it? How do you ground yourself again?
Yeah, it's anyone who says that they've never felt imposter syndrome is delusional. So I think it's unavoidable. So there's a couple of things that I think about. Michelle Obama in her book talks about imposter syndrome. And I listened to the audio, which she reads, which was amazing. And I loved it. And I would listen to it again. But she talks about how she has imposter syndrome. And I was like, okay, if Michelle Obama has imposter syndrome, like the problem is not the imposter, the problem is the syndrome. And she's talked about in interviews too. She's like, look, I've been in rooms with the best and the brightest in the entire world. And she's like, I'm here to tell you they are not that bright, which totally cracked me up. So that's part of it. And I certainly have those moments where I'm like, hey, I wonder if my client knows they're paying me to fill in blanks on a document. But I do think that at the end of the day, I am really good at what I do. And granted, I don't have to get out my best and highest skill set in every minute that I'm working. A lot of times what we do is very broad. And I'm sure it's the same with your business where you like swoop in and save the day or give someone some structure or do something that just completely changes the dynamic. And that's really where I earn my money. So I think it's just important to remember like you can't be 100% all the time. No one is. 100%, it's exhausting. It's not possible. But I can be 100%.
Oh, I
And
love.
my 100% is a good 100%. But I'm not going to be that all the time. And
Right.
I think that as I've gotten older, I think that having that framework of this is just something that I'm feeling that it's just not true.
And I think there's also grace.
Oh, absolutely. And there's no one, and this is even when I'm teaching people that are managers below me that have people that they're managing. I'm like, look, that person is never going to do what you want exactly the way you would do it. And if that's your expectation, you're setting both of you up for failure. And there are days where I'm like, I'm good. I'm going to go watch Love is Blind.
There you go.
When I was training for the marathon, my coach said sometimes your very best coaching session is when you get out there and you go, you know what, never mind, and get back in your car and go home. I was like, sometimes that's just it, like you said, but if you give yourself grace.
Yeah. I think this idea that you have to be 100% all of the time and that you're
It's
just holding
stupid.
yourself to a standard that isn't,
It's impossible.
it's impossible. And you know what I would also say is that if you're at 100% all the time, then there's no joy in that, right?
And this is a bigger problem with perfectionism. When you think perfect is attainable and you get there, you reset the bar because there's always more.
That's
So you're
right.
never actually getting to perfection because when you get to the next level of where you think you're going to be, you realize that you turn the door or you
Mhm.
open that door and there's more ahead of you. So the
Absolutely.
idea that you can be 100% of the time is it's just absurd.
Right. And I think that's the interesting thing is that maybe not even desirable.
And again, going back to the authenticity thing, I had a conversation with my client last night where it was towards the end of the day, and I said, I've got 5 more minutes in me and then I'm done. And I'm not going to look at this for the rest of the night, and you don't want me to, but I'll look at it tomorrow morning.
Yep, there you go.
And he was like, and he laughed and he goes, totally get it. Tomorrow morning's fine.
There's all kinds of things there, right? There's just being really clear about expectations, which I think oftentimes we have a little judgment on ourselves about, oh, what are they going to think about me?
100%.
Right? Because my 100% is I am on top of this all the time, right? And oftentimes it is just simply clear communication.
Okay. So yesterday I was listening to a podcast, a Mel Robbins podcast, and he blew my mind because I do it too, where they say sometimes when your client like sends you something and you're like, oh God, I've got to get to this right away. Their intention in sending it to you was maybe not that you get to it right away, but their intention was, I'm getting it off of my desk and onto yours because that's what I need to do. And it's so funny because I do that with my employees. I'll send them stuff over the weekend and then they'll reply to me and I'm like, don't reply to me. This is a weekend. I'm just getting it off my desk so it's in your to-do box on Monday morning. But it's so funny that I had that grace for my employees and it never occurred to me that my clients were doing the same thing.
Oh, that's interesting.
That they were like, I'm asking her, I know she'll get it done. Here, and now I've asked. I made the request, I can get it right out of my mind. Never occurred to me.
Oh, that's so funny. And again, it's just, I like to say often that somebody else's emergency or urgency is not necessarily yours. But it takes really clear communication and awareness in order to be able to sort that out.
Yeah. And
Um,
I think a history of producing. Like I can rely on my clients who know I'll get it done. They know it'll be done in a timely manner. They know I'm not going to wait a month to turn something around. And so as long as I continue to communicate with them that like, yes, I
right.
received it, then that trust has already been established. And so I don't need to act like the house is on fire every time I get an email.
Which is also the way that you continue to be incredibly productive, right? Because that's the thing, is that interrupting yourself all the time to task switch, right? To do 1,000 different small things. It's very hard to stay on top of everything and to
Mhm.
feel good. And there's a lot of lost productivity in all that switching.
Yeah.
Also, too, it's very funny. I don't know, maybe I've said this before on this podcast, but I moved to either a pad of paper or I have one of those remarkable tablets. And I had to do that because if I open up my iPad to take a note, I'm a goner because
Mhm.
there's so many things that are popping up. There's so many things that I can look at. There are so many distractions
Mhm.
that by the time I get to the note, I don't even know actually what it was that I was trying to
And
write.
you've lost 45 minutes at a minimum.
There you go. So I have moved to either a notepad and or like the remarkable tablet because it is literally just like a piece of paper and there's nothing else there. You got to know yourself. That's the thing.
100%.
That's right. Okay, I think we have done a fabulous job. And Katie, thank you so much because I think that you've really brought up actually, I think, some things that we haven't talked about before.
Mhm.
And listener, what I just want to say to you is that Katie is an attorney, so her experience is about being an attorney. I think a lot of this experience is translatable and transferable to whatever it is that you do. Take from it what you think is really valuable and go out there and be a better human. So this is Kim Miller-Hershon, Kim Miller-Hershon Coaching and Consulting. You are listening to Unconventional Wisdom about conventional wisdom with my friend, badass attorney, and all around fun wine drinking companion, Katie Phetteplace. And download, share, review, all the good stuff. And we will see you the next time.
Cliches retire, we set them free. Shaking the ground with epiphany. Fresh thinking loud, it's our decree. Unconventional wisdom dancing on the beat.